if you're part of the protagonist, then you need to make choices that lend themselves to the audience rooting for you, or whatever you're sort of involved with relationship-wise. You have to be hyper aware of, okay, so let's say, for example, in this scene, there's a scene between a husband and a wife, and they're gonna get divorced, and let's say it's a terrible marriage. So what would the audience be rooting for? Well, the audience may very well be rooting for the two of them to separate, because it's not healthy. So, you know, if I'm playing the husband, I would want to think about, okay, how am I coming off? And I need to come off in a way that I'm magnetic, but also somebody who's maybe impatient, explosive, but also make choices that don't make me come off as annoying. Does this make sense? Yeah?
How do you know what the audience is rooting for?
That's part of, hopefully, the more you do this, the more you're going to be able to kind of get the heartbeat of that. You know, it's sort of I don't want you to overthink it. It's just sort of like you're watching the scene. What is the audience hoping is going to happen? It's going to be a person, a relationship, a body of people. You know, so like in your scene, what happens in your scene?
The guy is trying to break up with his mistress, and she is not having it.
Okay, so let's look at that scene. So if we kind of break it down, what would your protagonist of that scene be? I'm watching it, and I'm rooting for something.
Right.
What would that be? That would be your protagonist. Okay. What is the protagonist of the scene?
Well, me being a married woman, I want him to dump her and quit cheating on his wife.
So no, I'm not saying from your perspective.
Oh,
I'm saying from the audience's perspective. It's very different. So the audience is watching the scene, and they're hoping something's going to happen.
Right.
What are they hoping for? They're hoping you just freaking relax and leave them alone. You know, your character is obsessive, you know, she's dominating, she's not playing by the rules of the affair, if you will. So the audience is sort of hoping that you'll relax and like, you guys will go your separate ways. Does that make sense? So that should tell you, okay, well, if that's the case, then that tells you a lot about how you can play your role. Because if I'm playing a character similar to yours, and I know that the audience is rooting for us to separate, well, that means I can come off as very dominating, sort of overbearing, obsessive, all choices that would lend themselves to the audience rooting for us to separate. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. You guys have any questions about that so far? No? Okay, so the main thing I also wanted to get to today is the next steps. Okay, so the next step is going to be, you know, picking our objective and our emotion. So assuming you're going to get better at picking your objectives and emotions, but the main thing I want to make sure that we cover today before the class starts is understanding, you know, how an objective and emotion works and how we actually do it on that list. So an objective is what you need, it's what you want in the scene. So what is your objective, Monica, in your scene, the beginning of the scene?
To get him to be mine totally. To
make him mine, okay?
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
To make him mine. Okay, so then Monica, you sit right here. All right, so I'm gonna read off the paper with you. Do you have it memorized?
Yeah.
Okay, so on that list, it says, now run the scene 2 times or 3 times with just the objective. You know what I'm talking about? It says run the scene 2 to 3 times. You know where I am on the list? Okay, so that's what we do now. That's what we do is we're trying to iron